The dark truth about women men must know. Women are not evil. Let's begin there. Too many men, after heartbreak or betrayal, spiral into a mindset where they see women as malicious or intentionally deceptive. But that's not the truth, and more importantly, that mindset is weak. The reality is far more complex, and understanding it gives you power, not resentment. Women are biologically and socially conditioned to seek safety, security, and survival. For thousands of years, that meant aligning themselves with men who could provide those things. Evolution favored women who chose mates that offered protection, resources, and status. That instinct hasn't disappeared, it's just wearing modern clothes. Today, it may look like dating the guy with the flashier lifestyle, the man with social influence, or the one who simply offers emotional stability. It's not about love in the fairy tale sense. It's about alignment with advantage. This is not inherently cruel. It's strategic. It's nature doing its job. Men make a grave mistake when they confuse opportunism with affection. Just because a woman is affectionate, caring, and attentive today doesn't mean she's doing so purely from a place of selfless love. Often, she is responding to who you are at this moment, your value, your energy, your direction. And if those things change, her behavior might change too. The man who once made her feel safe, desired, or inspired may no longer fit the version of herself she's growing into. In those moments, her loyalty may fade, her attention may wander, and you may be left wondering what happened. But nothing happened in the dramatic sense. She simply recalculated consciously or subconsciously. This is why so many men are blindsided when a woman they believed in suddenly grows distant or leaves altogether. It feels cold, even heartless. But it's not about heartlessness, it's about instinct. And men who don't understand this pattern fall into cycles of victimhood, bitterness, or worse, they start chasing again to win back what they think they lost, not realizing it was never really theirs in the first place. Nothing is permanent if it's built on shifting sands. That's why the strongest men do not build their identity on how loved they feel by a woman. They anchor it in mission, principles, and clarity. They understand that affection can be real but still conditional. They know that connection is often tied to utility, and utility isn't eternal. You must always be evolving, not to please her, but because stagnation is death in your purpose, your mindset, and your self-respect. Understanding that female nature is opportunistic isn't about condemnation, it's about liberation. It frees you from fairy tales. It arms you with discernment. It teaches you that love, in the modern world, is rarely unconditional, and expecting it to be will only leave you vulnerable to emotional chaos. You don't need to hate women for this truth. You just need to stop romanticizing what was never rooted in permanence. Once you see this clearly, you stop being reactive. You start becoming strategic. You become unshakable. In today's digital world, attention has become one of the most valuable currencies, and many women are masters at collecting it. Social media, dating apps, and even day-to-day interactions have created an environment where validation is only a click away. A like here, a comment there, a lingering stare in public, it all feeds the same thing. The desire to be seen, wanted, and pursued. And this isn't inherently wrong. Everyone enjoys feeling desired. But for men, giving attention freely and without intention is like handing out money to strangers on the street and expecting loyalty in return. It's naive and ultimately self-destructive. Men need to realize that their attention, when directed without discipline, loses its power. When you constantly message, compliment, chase, and try to win over women, you become another voice in the endless chorus of men doing the exact same thing. And when your presence becomes predictable and your words repetitive, Your value drops not because you're unworthy, but because you've made yourself too available. Scarcity creates demand. Overexposure creates indifference. Many women, especially those accustomed to high levels of attention, unconsciously start to gauge their self-worth by how much male validation they receive. If you're constantly validating her, liking every post, responding instantly, flooding her with praise, you're feeding her ego more than you're building any real connection. You've gone from being a man she's curious about to just another fan in her digital arena. And here's the twist: the more attention you give, the less she needs to earn it. When there's no challenge, there's no intrigue. When there's no mystery, there's no magnetism. But this goes deeper. For some women, especially those who thrive on emotional highs, attention isn't just about admiration, it's a form of control. If they can keep you orbiting them, always available, always wondering, always reacting, they remain in a position of power. They don't need to commit, invest, or reciprocate. Your attention becomes their fuel while you're left empty. You end up chasing breadcrumbs, thinking you're building something meaningful, while she's simply enjoying the ego boost. This is why emotionally disciplined men are rare and respected. They don't throw attention around like confetti. They observe before they engage. They value their energy, their time, and their presence, and they make others value it too. When a man is selective with his attention, when he doesn't rush to respond or flatter or pursue, it creates a dynamic shift. Suddenly, she has to earn his gaze, his words, his time. That shift in energy exposes who's really interested and who's just collecting admirers. You are the source of the attention. You are the prize, not the petitioner. When you treat your attention as sacred, as something that must be earned through authenticity and mutual value, everything changes. You stop being a backup option, an emotional crutch, or a disposable thrill. You become something else entirely: a man with boundaries, presence, and power. Attention is currency, and if you give it away to everyone, don't be surprised when no one values it. Hypergamy is one of the most misunderstood and underestimated aspects of female nature, yet it governs so much of modern dating dynamics quietly but powerfully. At its core, hypergamy is the biological and psychological tendency for women to seek out the highest value man available to them. It's not a moral flaw. It's not something taught through media or culture alone. It's deeply rooted in evolutionary psychology. For generations, a woman's survival and the survival of her offspring were directly tied to the man she chose. That meant picking the strongest, the most resourceful, the most competent male she had access to. That instinct didn't vanish with modern society, it simply evolved with it. Today, hypergamy no longer looks like choosing the strongest hunter or the man with the biggest farm. Now it looks like attraction to status, influence, emotional intelligence, and ambition. It manifests in a woman's desire for a man who commands respect, who walks with self-assurance, who is ascending, not stagnant. And if you're not growing, if you're not building, if you're not moving towards something greater, that hypergamous instinct will slowly shift her gaze elsewhere, maybe not physically at first, but emotionally, mentally, and eventually, permanently. This is the hard truth many men struggle to accept. Loyalty and attraction are often conditional. Conditional on your drive, your competence, your ability to lead and protect. You might be loved today for who you are, but if you stop becoming better, if you fall into complacency, you risk being outgrown. Hypergamy doesn't reward potential, it rewards progression. You can't afford to relax just because you've won her attention. You must continue to earn it through the man you're becoming. And here's where it gets darker: hypergamy never sleeps. Even if she's in a relationship with you, the instinct doesn't disappear. She's always subconsciously scanning her environment, measuring, comparing, calculating, not because she's planning to leave, but because her biology is assessing whether you're still the best option she can secure. If another man enters her orbit who exudes more confidence, has more influence, or evokes deeper emotional resonance, she will notice. She might suppress it, she might deny it, but it registers. And if she perceives that you are slipping, losing your edge, your ambition, your leadership, she may begin to withdraw. Not always dramatically, but gradually. Less respect, fewer moments of vulnerability, more emotional distance. Many men are caught off guard by this. They believe that because a woman once loved them intensely, that love is permanent. But love rooted in attraction is tied to perception, and perception is tied to performance. This isn't about becoming a workhorse or living under pressure to keep a woman. It's about understanding the natural law of value. Just as you would stop investing in a business that shows no growth, a woman may stop investing in a man who shows no upward movement spiritually, emotionally, financially, or otherwise. What makes hypergamy especially brutal in today's world is that women have access to more options than ever before. Social media, dating apps, and online communities have created a constant influx of male attention. This means the threshold for what qualifies as a you man is higher than it's ever been. And for you to stand out not just once, but consistently, you must be actively leveling up. This doesn't mean you have to be rich or famous, but you must be purpose-driven, you must have vision, you must carry yourself with certainty and quiet strength. You must be a man who leads, not follows. Understanding hypergamy isn't about becoming paranoid or resentful. It's about respecting the game enough to stay in shape mentally, emotionally, and physically. A woman's desire for better isn't a threat if you are committed to being better always. That doesn't mean exhausting yourself to prove your worth. It means stepping into your purpose and becoming the kind of man who doesn't have to compete because you know your value and you live it without compromise. Hypergamy isn't your enemy, it's your wake-up call. Stay sharp, stay ascending. When a woman speaks, you must learn to listen beyond the words. One of the most dangerous mistakes men make is taking everything a woman says at face value, believing that her words are always aligned with her actions, her intentions, and her long-term mindset. But the reality is that women live more deeply in the realm of emotion, and emotion, by nature, is fluid. It can shift from one moment to the next, depending on how she feels, what she's experiencing, or who's influencing her environment. This doesn't mean she's lying. It means that in that moment what she says may be true to her. But truth, based on emotion, isn't always lasting. For example, a woman might tell you she loves you deeply, that she wants a future, that you're the only one she sees. And in that moment, she may fully believe it. But 2 weeks later, if something changes, if she starts feeling unfulfilled, disconnected, or doubts your direction, that love can fade fast, and those promises evaporate like smoke. This is the nature of emotional truth. It can be genuine and yet still temporary. If you base your actions on what a woman says in her highest emotional peak, without watching how she behaves in her lowest emotional valley, you're building on sand. Women are far more in tune with how they feel in the present than they are with fixed plans. Her mood might dictate her tone, her affection, even her level of commitment in that instant. And because men are conditioned to value consistency and logic, this emotional fluidity can feel deceptive. But it's not manipulation in the traditional sense. It's simply how emotion-driven communication works. The problem isn't that women express how they feel. The problem is that men confuse those expressions as guarantees rather than snapshots. You must always watch for alignment between a woman's words and her actions. Does she follow through? Does her behavior stay consistent when emotions are low? Does she still show up when you're not entertaining her or feeding her with constant validation? A woman who means what she says over time will prove it, not through grand words, but through subtle, consistent effort, especially when things aren't easy or exciting. Men also need to understand that a woman's language can be layered, filled with indirect signals, tests, and emotional cues. She might say she's fine when she's actually distant. She might say she needs space when she's actually looking for reassurance. She might tell you she doesn't want anything serious, but still expects commitment once you've invested emotionally. These contradictions aren't always intentional. They come from inner emotional conflict, from testing your awareness, or from trying to protect herself without confronting you head on. If you don't know how to read between the lines, you'll end up reacting instead of responding, chasing her approval, or pulling away at the wrong time. This is why Stoicism and emotional control are essential for a man. You must anchor yourself in observation, not reaction. Let her words be data points, not directives. Watch how she treats you when you're not giving her attention. Look at how she handles conflict, boredom, or delay. That's where her real nature is revealed. Anyone can say the right thing when feelings are high, but character and intent are revealed in stillness, in silence, in struggle, in sustained consistency. Never forget, words are cheap, they cost nothing, but behavior is expensive. It requires effort, energy, and investment. That's where the truth lives, not in what she says when she's emotional, but in what she does when no one's watching and when nothing is convenient. You don't need to become cynical. You need to become clear. Listen carefully, but watch closer. A woman's words may comfort you, but her actions are what should guide you. A woman will always test you. This is not optional. It's not a question of if, but when and how. These tests are rarely obvious. They don't always come in the form of a direct challenge or a loud argument. More often they come subtly, through sarcasm, withdrawal, small shifts in tone, changes in behavior, or unexpected emotional reactions. And many men, especially those who lack emotional awareness or confidence, completely miss what's happening until it's too late. They react impulsively, get defensive, or try to appease her, unaware that each reaction is being measured, not consciously perhaps, but instinctively. Why does she test you? Because she needs to feel your strength, not physical strength, emotional, psychological, energetic strength. She wants to know that the man she's with can hold his own frame, that he doesn't crumble under emotional pressure, that he can stand firm without needing her constant approval. These tests are not about cruelty, they're about calibration. She's feeling out where your limits are, where your insecurities lie, and whether you truly are the man you project yourself to be. It's a stress test for your masculinity, and only men who understand this dynamic respond with presence instead of panic. One of the most common forms of testing is through emotional turbulence. She may criticize something you care about, delay her responses, become mysteriously cold, or compare you to someone else. This is the moment where most men lose themselves. They chase, they plead, they try to fix things, and in doing so, they inadvertently validate the very doubts she was testing for. Is he needy? Can he handle himself without collapsing into me? Does he have a spine? Every time you seek reassurance, you lose authority. Every time you beg for clarity, you lose mystery. And every time you make her your emotional center, you lose polarity. There's another level to this as well. A woman may test you not just when she's uncertain, but when she feels too certain. If the relationship becomes too predictable, too secure, too easy, She may stir things up just to feel your edge again. This is not about logic, it's about emotional stimulation. Women are drawn to men who create emotional gravity. If she can read you like a manual, if she knows every reaction before it happens, she loses the feeling of being in the presence of a strong, conscious man. Testing becomes her way of checking, is there still a man here who can lead me? Can I still trust him to hold the frame when I can't? That's why you must learn to remain grounded when tested. When she becomes cold, you stay calm. When she provokes, you don't flinch. When she withdraws, you don't chase. You stay rooted in your own energy, your own path, not in arrogance or indifference, but in quiet confidence. You let her storms come and go without abandoning your center, and paradoxically, this is what draws her closer. The moment she realizes that you are emotionally self-contained, that your validation doesn't rise and fall with her moods, is the moment she begins to trust you in a deeper way. Testing also reveals another important truth. Women don't always want to be in control. In fact, many women secretly desire to be led, not dominated, not manipulated, but led with certainty. And testing is often her subconscious way of asking, can I trust you enough to surrender? Will you collapse when I'm chaotic? Or will you hold steady and guide us both through the storm? The man who can pass this test consistently becomes the rare figure in her life that commands not just desire, but respect. And without respect, desire fades quickly. Understand this deeply. Tests are not to be resented. They are to be expected, respected, and mastered. They are signals of feminine energy seeking strength. They are part of the dance. If you react to them, you lose ground. If you resent them, you fail to understand feminine psychology. But if you recognize them for what they are, windows into her emotional world and opportunities to lead, you gain not only clarity, but power. Most men never reach this point. They stay reactive, confused, or emotionally entangled. But the man who learns to welcome the test, pass it with poise, and stay rooted in his purpose becomes unshakable. In a world that constantly bombards both men and women with shallow ideals of beauty, worth, and success, there's a hard truth that many men are reluctant to face. The moment you stop being useful in a woman's life emotionally, financially, socially, or even sexually, she will begin to emotionally detach. That detachment may not be immediate. It may not even be visible at first. But it starts the moment she no longer feels that you are contributing something meaningful to her life, to her growth, or to her sense of identity and safety. And this isn't because women are cold or calculating, it's because humans are inherently wired for survival, growth, and fulfillment. Love is not immune to utility. For many men, this realization feels brutal, especially when you've invested time, energy, effort, and vulnerability into a relationship. You believe love should be unconditional, but unconditional love is a fantasy in most adult relationships. It's a beautiful idea often spoken of in poems, music, and fairy tales, but in real life, love is often highly conditional. Conditional on how you make her feel, how you lead, how you show up, and whether or not you're aligned with her present needs. If your presence no longer brings value, whether through emotional strength, direction, intimacy, or leadership, she will slowly begin to reevaluate your place in her life. And here's what makes it more complex. Most women won't tell you directly that you're no longer useful. It's not because they're deceptive. It's because they often don't even realize it consciously themselves. Instead, you'll feel the shift in subtle ways. Her tone will change, her availability will decrease, her enthusiasm around you will start to dim, she'll become more critical or withdrawn, conversations will feel strained, her body language will grow colder, and when you Bring it up. She may say she just needs space, or that she's not sure what she wants. But beneath those words, a silent calculation is being made. Is this man still aligned with where I'm going? This is why a man must never allow himself to become stagnant. You cannot afford to stop evolving. Once you're in a relationship, you cannot put your personal growth on pause because you think you've secured her love, because in the background of her mind, she's always sensing whether the man in front of her is the same man she was drawn to or a diluted version of him. And once that sense of growth, mystery, and forward motion disappears, the emotional connection begins to erode. Not because she's shallow, but because she's wired to be drawn to purpose, progression, and presence. Women are naturally attracted to men who are rooted in their mission, men who are creators, builders, protectors, and providers in a broader sense. Not just with money or material things, but with energy, insight, and ambition. When you lose that, when you become emotionally dependent, directionless, or resigned, you stop being the man she looked up to. You become someone she has to carry, fix, or motivate, and while she might do that for a short time, it won't last, because no woman wants to be a mother to her man. That dynamic destroys polarity, it suffocates attraction, and it turns love into a burden. There's another dimension to usefulness that often gets ignored: emotional leadership. Many men believe their role is simply to provide financially or to be physically present, but that's not enough. A high-quality woman seeks a man who can guide emotionally, who can offer strength when she feels lost, who can stay calm when she's in chaos, and who knows who he is even when everything else is uncertain. That kind of emotional gravity is rare, and it makes a man useful in a way that transcends surface-level value. When a man possesses that presence, he doesn't have to cling or convince. His usefulness is felt through the stability he brings. But the reverse is also true. The moment you begin to rely on her for your sense of identity, when you put her at the center of your emotional universe, you become expendable. Not because she wants to discard you, but because she cannot respect a man who depends on her for validation. Your usefulness is not about serving her every whim. It's about serving your own purpose with such commitment and intensity that your presence naturally elevates the space around you. When you live like that, she feels it, she respects it, she values it. If you stop being useful, someone else will eventually take your place. That's a harsh truth, but it's a necessary one. This doesn't mean living in fear of being replaced. It means living in awareness of your value. It means never allowing complacency to settle in. It means staying sharp mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically. It means becoming a man who doesn't just offer value, but embodies it as a lifestyle. That's the kind of man a woman doesn't want to lose, because he's not just useful, he's irreplaceable. So what does all this mean for you as a man? It means you must stop operating on outdated illusions about love, attraction, and loyalty. Understand the nature of women, not to blame, resent, or control them, but to navigate relationships with clarity, strength, and emotional intelligence. The world doesn't reward men who ignore reality. It rewards men who face it head on, who take ownership of their value, and who lead with quiet confidence. Women will come and go, emotions will rise and fall, but the man who knows who he is, who stays grounded in his purpose, and who understands the deeper dynamics of connection, that man becomes untouchable. Be that man, stay sharp, stay sovereign, and never give your power away.